Good evening. Day and night, American youth are enticed by electronic visions of a world so violent, sensual, and narcotic that childhood itself appears to be under siege. The images portrayed to the young through records, TV, videos, and films are so provocative that parents are in an uproar, psychologists are warning of dire consequences, and entertainment producers are fearful of threats to free speech and nationwide record boycotts. Public pressure has already forced the $4.3 billion a year recording industry to voluntarily slap parental guidance stickers on records and tapes. The conflict over what is suitable entertainment for 66 million Americans under the age of 19 engages politicians, senators' wives, parents, and major rock stars. Tonight on School Beat, we'll examine that conflict with Frank Zappa, an outspoken opponent to any form of abridgment of First Amendment rights, Jim Hodson, producer of Real Videos, and Norma Downs, Communications Commissioner of the California State PTA. Stay tuned as School Beat debates the crusade launched against porn lyrics that is forcing a showdown with the record industry. We'll be right back after the break. Porn lyrics and the possible censorship. I'd like to read to you some lyrics from Darling Nikki. I know a girl named Nikki. I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. I met her in a hotel lobby masturbating with a magazine. She said, how'd you like to waste some time? And I could not resist when I saw Little Nikki Grind, or from Prince's album, Oral Sex and Incest. My sister never made love with anyone but me. Incest is everything it's said to be. Is that pornography?
Is it necessary?
Well,
that would be the
I only read you the ones I could read aloud.
Right, right. The thing, well, pornography, I think, is a word that is very hard to define. In someone's mind, it's pornography. It's not in good taste. It's not necessary.
Justice Potter said he knew it when he saw it.
Maybe.
Is that true?
I don't know that you'd even have to see it. Hearing it is it's not a good feeling that comes with hearing something like that. And kids develop their patterns of living by everything that they see and hear and feel, and it would seem that this would be pretty confusing.
Is it confusing, Frank?
Well, when you consider that masturbation is a practice that has been going on since the beginning of time, from cradle to grave, I don't see why it makes any difference if Prince sings about it. The idea that hearing the lyric to a song is going to corrupt you, that is going to send you to hell, that is going to turn you into a social liability is not backed up by any kind of scientific data. It's stupid.
And you would not be in favor of any kind of censorship of rock lyrics or censorship thereof?
I'm not in favor of censorship of any description.
Well, censorship is not what we're talking about, though.
Well, yes, we are.
Sort of?
Well, yes, we are talking about the possible censorship of rock videos, of rock lyrics, and the movement that is in Washington to bring about that censorship in order to take lyrics, such as I've just read to you, off the air. Am I not discussing this correctly? Am I not stating the
your
case?
opening statement that's setting up the show is the same kind of confusing stupidity that has been attendant to this issue since the ladies went into business May 14th, 1985.
How do you define it then?
Well, first of all, you should be real specific. If we're talking about words, don't stick the videos in there. Don't spread it out like a cow flop across the whole spectrum of human entertainment experience. When I say they, the PMRC has created the illusion that a connection between lyrics to a song and strange social behavior is something that has to be pinned on people in a specific industry. And then they talk about videos and films and stuff on the sideline to emphasize this pornographic aspect. And it's a con job. It is simply not real.
But MTV uses the combinations of videos and the rock lyric music.
That's another issue, though. The original issue was words. We're talking about words.
Let's go to words.
And the words are visible in the songs, too. I mean, it's just visual music.
Yeah, but I'm talking about specifically what the PMRC did in their campaign. They started the scare campaign that words will make you do bad things, okay? And then got on television for two reasons. One, because videos existed. You could take a video and you could cut up pictorial videos and make a nice little bumper to start your news story off, and then the announcer would say, look at this, you decide whether the words are going to hurt you. But it's always, look at this, now decide about the words. If there weren't any videos to dramatize it for television, they wouldn't have gotten the kind of coverage on the nightly news that they got.
I sort of disagree with that statement only because I think that the PTA, and I'm not going to state the case for them, has been on this issue for many, many years. In my opinion,
at least one.
Well, in my opinion, it got the coverage that it did because you had a couple of senators' wives involved.
Well, I was going to say that's another reason why they got coverage, but it wouldn't have been as extensive if the news itself hadn't have been pictorial. Of course they would have gotten on the news because they're senators' wives.
Yes.
Okay? That's obvious. But the reason it got so much exposure on the media is because it sells deodorant. It's a catchy, flashy little news story. You can stick it in every 5 o'clock news, and look at this, now you decide. And it's a joke.
Jim, how do you see the issue?
Well, I think that's kind of a smokescreen because, I mean, even if it's visual or not, the lyrics speak for themselves. I mean, that's like the quote you mentioned. I don't want to listen to that kind of stuff. And while I think he has the right to say it, it scares me that he would, and that people would produce it as a record company, and then people would buy it too, and it would get airplay. It gets radio airplay.
But if we were to put labels on record albums, wouldn't that indeed stifle creativity? Wouldn't that indeed make a whole different music industry than the one that we have?
I think it would change it a little bit. Once again, the precedent would be motion pictures. Producers purposely make films to be rated R because they make more money. And the record industry tends to say, well, no one will buy them if they're rated R, but I think it's just the opposite. If you rate a record R, say this is bad, people will automatically want it more. And it's just a sad statement on society today, but...
Well, would you rate some of the lyrics that I read and some of the others that I didn't rate? Would you rate them R? Would you rate them X? Would you rate them at all?
Well, if there was a rating system, they would be rated R and X, but I think the answer is to have the lyrics printed on the outside of the albums. Kind of like a food item. If you want to know what's inside, you read the label and see the ingredients, because if I want to eat healthfully, I want to know what I'm eating before I buy it.
Would you object to that, Frank?
Well, here's what the problem is. First of all, you're still confusing the issue because the agreement has already been reached and it does not include a rating system. There's no R, no X, no G, no PG. The agreement reached on November 1st, according to the Associated Press Wire report, says the record industry and the PMRC and the PTA have come to an agreement. Here's what the agreement contains: that the parents' groups will have no control over saying what is explicit. Gordikoff said, what's explicit is explicit. The agreement also states that the record industry will make the decision as to what gets the warning. The warning says this: explicit lyrics, parental advisory. There's no R, PG, or anything like that. That's all it is. Furthermore, it states that any artist who has contractual control over his album packaging is free to ignore the understanding. So that means he doesn't have to stick it on there if he wants. Basically, what has been agreed to is face-saving PR. The record industry did the PMRC and the PTA a big favor by agreeing to this non-binding nothingness so that the ladies could look like they accomplished something. Basically, they have accomplished nothing except to confuse the American public with this. And it's continuing here. You're still talking about R, PG, and the rest of this stuff. It didn't happen.
All right,
Well,
he's just accused you of nothingness now.
Would you rather have legislation then?
No, I'll fight it all. You know, but the fact of the matter is, what occurred at that press conference was a scam, and the Los Angeles Times left out the 2 lines from the Associated Press wire report that tells you that nothing really happened.
Well, but it is happening. Every time a parent picks up a record that has the lyrics printed on it, that parent has the privilege then and the right to refuse a young child having that record in the home. As the children get older, sure, they're going to make up their own minds about what they buy, but by this time they will have recognized what the parents' values are and hopefully go along with them.
Frank, you talk about this, thank you, you talk about this as being a scam.
It is a scam.
And I think that what Norm is trying to say is that if the scam, so to speak, is not accepted, then stronger methods will be used, things that would probably be even much less acceptable.
Well, that too would be a
stating your
scam.
case?
First of all, the legislation was recommended by Senator Hollings. The legislation that he recommended, and that a girl named Cheryl Wallace in his office was drafting, a bill that would require lyrics to be placed on the back of an album. I called his office. I explained to her, since she was writing the bill, that there is no statutory rate for the privilege of publishing lyrics on the back of an album. There's no industry-established fee, because you can't demand that somebody who wrote words gives up his rights to exploitation and they go on the back of the album. And so I had researched it because I recommended that at the Senate hearing. I said, if you had to choose between a third party deciding what does it contain and rating it, or somebody reading the lyrics, obviously it would be better for the person to read the lyrics and make up their own mind. I recommended it at that time, but I also stated that whoever has written those lyrics needs to be paid for it. They're not always owned by the record company or by the person who's singing the record. Those are owned by third and fourth parties.
Thank you very much. I just have to interrupt for 1 second. We'll be right back after the break, and we'll discuss more about porn lyrics. Stay with us. The issue of porn rock lyrics. Jim, what does that kind of music do to kids, in your opinion?
Well, I think it is very dangerous. Like Frank was saying, there's no scientific data about what really happens. But on our show, we play music videos by artists who are Christians, so we have the opposite side. We get a lot of letters from people who say, hey, my life has really been affected by the negative aspects of these lyrics, and now my life has been changed because of what these Christian artists are saying. A girl wrote to me saying, hey, I saw a video on your show that changed my life. She was being pressured into having sex with her boyfriend, and she changed her mind because of a video we played. Music is like a knife. It can be used by a murderer, Richard Ramirez, to kill people, or it can be used by a surgeon to heal people. And we're talking about some of these really explicit lyrics. That's kind of the minority. I think the real danger is in the vast majority of lyrics that are just slightly off-center. Things like Madonna saying, get into the groove, you got to prove your love to me, things like that don't sound really obscene, but they have even a greater negative impact because they're subtle.
But, is there any real chance in today's world that we're going to change the music that's played, or the music, in a sense, that's bought by the young people?
No, I'm an optimist, but I think our society is that way, and the artists are reflecting that, and they're trying to be more shocking, and therefore they push back the limits and make it the standard. I think the responsibility is with the record companies to say, hey, shape up here.
But then, Frank, wouldn't you have control by the record companies of the artists if indeed you took that policy?
First of all, you have control of the record companies by the artists now. Okay. The control is called the dollar. The artist doesn't get signed unless the record company thinks they can make money. The record company is a bank. They advance the money to make the album. If there's a sufficient amount of pressure on the record company to behave in a certain way, you're going to have conflicts in the executive suite where a guy will decide, I know if I sign this group and we let them do what they normally do, that we're going to sell a certain amount of records, or if I sign, or if I don't sign that kind of a group and sign only Christian rock, which will appease only these Christians who are very upset about this thing, that we're probably going to sell plenty of records of a Christian rock nature to a Christian rock audience, and everything should be that way, you're going to have those kind of mental conflicts in the executive suite.
So the judgment call cannot be made, in other words, by record companies, record producers, or artists. In other words, you're saying that judgment call is made by the dollar.
That is the ultimate call. If they think they can make more money by recording only Christian rock, which is not well defined yet as an art form or even acceptable to some people from the Christian perspective, if you know about Freedom Village in Lakemont, New York, a detox center where parents send children to be cured of rock addiction, run by Pastor Fletcher A. Brothers. Yes, I've received their information, a fascinating place. He sent me a list of about this long of all of the offending artists. He calls it all murder music. Oh. And, bold-faced capital letters. Some of the people on his list include Stevie Wonder. And the reason he's on there is because he has something about astrology in his album. John Denver is on there because he went through Est. Boy George is on there because not only does he want to be neither male nor female, but it claims that his albums promote Hinduism. So you have if you're going to just go purely Christian here, you're going to have to deal with the Christian extremes too. So a record company executive is going to say, if I must appease to the Christian contingent who want no sex and only certain points of view, which of these strange points of view do I deal with? How can he make that call? Ultimately, he's going to go, I'm selling millions of records right now with Prince just the way he is. I'm leaving it. You don't think they're going to make Prince change Darling Nikki in the next record?
No, I don't think they're going to make Prince change anything in the next record. That's really not the issue. I suppose the issue is this type of music harmful to kids? If so, who has control over the music? And is it the parental responsibility to make sure that the kids do or do not listen? That's really how I see it.
Well, you're describing a medical situation. First of all, there's no documentation that proves that hearing a word turns you into a social liability. You may have feelings about it. You may consider it a matter of taste. But unless there is scientific evidence that says if a person hears a song about masturbation, it's all over. When somebody proves that, then you've got a reason to cry, alarm, alarm. We must change the industry to accommodate this point of view. But until that happens, I think it is people with concerns, which are valid, but not necessarily huge enough that we have to occupy the media and the government with the matter of Prince's lyrics because he wants to sing about somebody for the magazine.
Norma? With that sentence, that's a great lead-in.
That's a little, yeah.
Okay.
I think my point of view comes from the point of view of all kids. And it's not only the kids who have good rapport with their parents who will talk about these things, but it's a youngster who will listen to this kind of thing and think that that's the way of the world.
But I think Frank's point of view
yeah.
is that maybe that hasn't been proven, that listening to that music does not make them think this is the point of view.
Well, I don't think you can prove why somebody goes off the deep end and does some of these awful things that are said in these other violent things. The rape, the incest. I mean, if you're going to sing about those things, somebody's going to pick that up as being a way of life.
Well, let me ask you one simple question. A lot has been made about this Night Stalker case, and they said, and PMRC has been very delighted to assist in the public conception that if you hear an AC/DC record album, there's always a possibility that you may be the next Richard Ramirez. I would like to pose this question. Take any number of mass murderers in the United States and ask them what their favorite form of music is. And I bet you're going to find one of them likes Wayne Newton, and another one happens to like some cowboy entertainer.
Well,
and what are you going to do? Pin it on, if a guy commits a crime, you're going to blame him for the music he listens to, the church he goes to, because that may have an even larger impact on what the guy is.
I think you can pick every form of media that you hear, and it's going to fit somebody somewhere.
Okay, but the people who do the horrible things are not doing it just because of music.
Not just because, no, but it's an added factor to an already sick world. And it just doesn't seem
which
that...
came first, the sick world or the music that writes about
which came
that
first,
world?
the chicken or the egg? The thing is that media itself, I think, has a very definite impact upon people.
Sure, I agree with that because if you're on the radio or on TV or in films, what you say automatically carries a more authoritative weight just because you're on TV.
Do you see an age, for instance, Jim, where it would be acceptable, in your opinion, for kids to start listening to music that is like I described?
Oh, I don't think that kind of music is acceptable to anyone. I don't.
But I mean, isn't there an age of reason that kids come to where they get to choose?
Oh, sure, but
you hope they don't choose that.
But I mean, at what age
yeah.
what age would you peg it?
no, I couldn't say because every person is different. I mean,
Frank, do you see that?
Well, I see from his point of view that there is no acceptable age to hear any of that kind of stuff. And if that view pervades, you will have censorship. I want to remind the people who are watching who know anything about the PTA that the PTA subscribes to a code which is First Amendment up and down the line. It has the Free Library Act and all the rest of that stuff. You don't want to take books out of the library because of content. I saw the thing. And the same thing should apply to records, because if you look at what's happening in public libraries, I talked to the Librarians Association maybe 8 years ago, and the trend then was 60% of the new purchases each year for the library were phonograph records. So this Library Bill of Rights should apply to
we have no quarrel at all, PTA-wise, with what is happening right now. We wanted consumer information, and that's what we're getting. And we're really quite content with that, because then it gives the youngster who's going to buy his own record a chance to see what's in it, and he can look at those words and he can decide, do I want to take this home or not, and you know, how important is it for me to have this right now. And the parent can see it for the youngster who is not old enough to make those decisions, or the parent is buying the record for the child. And eventually, the youngster is going to get to the age where he can make his own decisions, and then you hope some of this has rubbed off along the way,
Yeah,
such as many other issues that a youngster...
Age, though? What
I
age?
don't think you can put a chronological age to it.
Well, then what are we talking about? You're protecting them from something, and at some point you're going to have to let them go. What time? Children. What is the age bracket you're talking about? 8?
Some are ready to make their own decisions at 15, some at 16, and some never are.
Actually, what you're really saying is the parents are making the decisions for them, I think, because if kids would make the decision to buy this music, I think it would be at a different age than their parents would deem it acceptable.
But they don't buy the records because of the words. Most of the people in the younger age bracket buy it because of the tune or the beat, because they're dancing to it, they're not reciting.
That's why it's so dangerous.
Excuse me, folks. I wish that we could continue to dance, but we can't. We're out of time. Please stay with us. We'll be right back with the Scooby Mailbag. Welcome back. The discussion tonight on the censorship of rock lyrics was certainly an exciting and heated one. But the final decision on whether or not albums are labeled explicit lyrics parental advisory rests with you, the public. So what do you think? Should recording companies set up a voluntary censorship board in conjunction with their artists? Or is it truly an infringement of First Amendment rights and creative expression? Why don't you share your thoughts with us? This is School Beat for this Sunday night. Roberta Weintraub reporting from Los Angeles. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope to see you next week. Good night.